aan.
Sander, just a question.
I feel so horrible that I haven't been.
No, don't stress.
It will happen. Let's blame the rain, which we actually favor.
Sander, the screen is moving, and we were talking about it.
That's already down.
No, it's back again. But it could be a refresh rate on, if they set it to 60 or 50 hertz, it could be that.
Edrean told me what they did to Qlik.
Is that right? It's gets you a headache after a while.
About to get, what do you call it, vegan.
I feel as if I'm on a ship.
Yeah, I know. Sorry for that. But they've sorted it out. Hy vibreer alweer.
Miskien as hulle met die refresh rate op die presentasie speel, dat hy
Dan weer die weer gehertsa. Iets in daai lyn. Hierdie nuwe patroon ek sommer dat hierdie
ja, miskien as die binnekant op dat.
jy weet hy is behoorlik reg om op hier maar ek het gedag dat hy ding raak dat hy so opplak.
Okay, everyone, if you could take your seats so we can get started and try and get the show on the road. Okay, so again, we'd like to invite my dad to the stage just to present on our breeding and selection program. Now, a lot of you would know that I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, my dad in the afternoon session also presented on the cultivars. And there's a good reason for it. I think since then we're seeing more and more that there's high potential for these cultivars. And to give you some background, I have top worked large sections to this now with the hope of fast tracking some of this. But I think it's very important work to look at this breeding and selection and the way forward. Thank you. Sorry, the other thing is this wallet was left in the tent, Emmanuel Dassa. You can just collect your, good.
Ja, hierin is aan.
Yeah, there it is. Good. That's what happens if technology fails you. Ja, Marlene, jy is op die verkeerde ene hoor. While she's getting it ready, Gerard, is jy hier? So, Gerard Erasmus. Ja, bly jy is hier hoor. Gerard, when he was part of ALLESBESTE'S, he was part of Actually, both. The rootstock trial, we struggled to get the damn roots to grow out. Sorry, the plant to grow out below the sign or the graft union. And but as far as the breeding and selection is concerned, Gerard was also part of that, where we planted thousands of Hass seeds, and eventually the evaluation, I think, I was nice with him. Edrean, when he started on the farm about, I think, 12, 14 years ago, assisted me on some of the evaluations, and so we went on and on. It's, as they've said, it's a lengthy process, but it can be speed up. It can be fast-tracked or whatever. Right. ALLESBESTE'S breeding and selection program. I think Xander probably put this thing off. No, it is on. Waar moet ek mikke? Right, let's get down here. A lot of this you have heard has predominantly controlling the market share. Presently, I think it's 85% at least. The market share of Hass. Then the other thing is Hass tends to, and particularly in certain areas where the humidity is lower, when there's some stress and things, Hass drops to sizes of a large number of undersized fruit, as the so-called below 200 gram fruit, and which actually is a problem, and as age increases, it's also a problem. It becomes more of a problem. Then, during breeding, and you've heard the name Bob Berg. I think back in the 50s, he started with his research on breeding programs in California. A lot of, let's say, selections went through his hands. You heard 60,000 seeds planted. It's enormous. Bob Berg said a very, very important thing. During breeding and selection program, the most important tree characteristic are precocity and high consistency of consistent yielding abilities. Now, precocity is the ability to produce fruit very early in the life cycle of that tree. So it would be that you have flowering within 1 year after you've planted them, and that obviously is what we build on. Now, Maluma, we were just fortunate. You'll see how Maluma came our way. Then for genetic improvement of avocados, open pollination is preferred. Yeah, preferred is an understatement probably, because we don't really know, we can't get it, controlled pollination is possible, but it's difficult. So that's the way we go. The ideal would have been, to do controlled pollination. As more than, it says, more than 85% of all avocados sold worldwide. And the industry dominated by, this has also been said, I think, by Mary Lou, dominated by one single cultivar, or that produces too few new cultivars, is vulnerable. And it's been said a while back, it's in 1989. ALLESBESTE'S is situated in a subtropical region, Limpopo, and it's basically where you are now. Now, I didn't say that. Those of you that are in the avocado industry know that we talk of the World Avocado Organization. Those of you that live in Europe knows of the good work they're doing there, where they promote avocados. And fortunately they're there. For the consumption went up in Europe, and make it possible for us to sell more and more fruit. Actually, our main competition, Peru, sends more and more fruit, or produce more and more fruit. And yes, there's a lot of pressure on the market, and while we haven't got access to other markets, we need to rely on that market. So we actually think good of these people. This is a what they've posted on Instagram, and I was actually surprised. Has and has been, and look at the spelling of has been, and it says here, has been's definition: an avocado, formerly popular or influential, who continues in their field after their popularity or effectiveness has peaked and is now in decline. Very interesting statement. Then the traits of a new or the future avocado cultivar, I have said it just now: precocity, production, quality and timing. It must have a good quality. A lot of this has been said by previous speakers, like Mary Lou. The tree shape, structure, complexity and size suitable for high density trellising. One of the remarks that came from Mary Lou: I don't want to control growth vigor with Sunny. I want it to be built into the genes. Flower type. Those of you that farm with avocados know that we've got an A and a B type. Fruit characteristics, this is important: skin thickness and texture, skin color. The dark skin has become popular, so it is obviously a good vehicle. There's a lot of positives with the dark skin because it, all the skin blemishes gets basically covered up as it ripens. Then flesh, seed, flesh ratio. This is very, very important. Avocados tend to have big seed. Then storability, and now travels obviously, post-ripening shelf life, taste, then reduced post-cut pulp discoloration, post-slice, what Zander refers to, adaptability to climate, and actually to various climates, if it can, and resistance to pests and diseases. Oh, goodness. Yeah. I didn't say buy a donkey, so I can't stop. Die IT-span sal die ding uitsorteer daar agter. Maybe while we wait for them to sort it out there at the back. What we did is, there was a two-folded approach. There it is. Right, actually three-folded. So we had an integrated breeding and selection approach. You could plant a lot of seedlings. We heard that's what Bob Berg did. And then eventually you top work them to Hass later on. No, I'm talking nonsense. It's seedlings of your top producing Hass. Then chance selections. The chance selection is where somebody just threw a pip somewhere in the yard or wherever, or rootstock that grew out, and then imported material that you could rely on. And imported material, I've evaluated one cultivar that's or selection Turner has, but it doesn't come out to be good. Then chance seedling, Maluma is a chance seedling, and then the others would be what I'm going to report on that went through, let's say, open pollination breeding. So then, yes, you plant these seedlings, you do a first sort of evaluation, and that's a phase one evaluation, the best selection. Obviously, you wait for them to go into production, and that's where you would usually see when they're precocious. And then the best ones there would go then to what we call a phase two evaluation, then you could graph them obviously now on whatever rootstock and start evaluating them and see what their qualities and things are. And then the next phase would then be that you decide to go for what we call semi-commercial trialing or cooperative trials. I love the word cooperative, as that's where growers would stick up their hand and say, I would love to make land available for you to do those trialing, and then obviously he would have the results firsthand. And then after that, you go to full commercialization. And as been said here, nowadays, if you've got a good selection, you would protect the plant breeder's rights of it, and you would most certainly consider to take it into a brand, into a club, brand it and take it into a club. And usually these closed type of clubs, not an open one as we have with Maluma, because in Afrikaans we say, die beste stuurman staan op die wal. In English, I don't know if I could translate it directly, but the guy that has the most knowledge is always the person that hasn't even one tree in his yard, or I doubt if he has even been exposed to it, other than, what the messages are spread in the field. And those people could do a lot of damage, because they come, and usually it is scientists, usually people, high-profile people, that could tell you how good, actually the opposite, how bad your new selection is. I've got this saying that in breeding, the ideal, and I've said it at many platforms, the ideal Hass would be the identical, replacement for Hass would be the identical twin. Because if you go and look the millions that has been spent in the industries over the world to sort out the difficulties of the prime cultivar that we have, and I don't shoot it down. Hass is a brilliant cultivar. It made us all good money. But we live with the negatives, but we're not prepared to basically accommodate a new cultivar. And it's basically because we've been told that we need to breed for the housewife. But funny enough, it's not housewives. They're not dressed like women, if I've got it right. The people in the trade, they tend to have all this interesting way of thinking and whatever, probably emotionally based things, but they come across knowledgeable as what the housewife want. I can tell you, I've no doubt, ask all of you here, and certainly those overseas, what is the number one criteria? When I buy that fruit, I cut it open, I want to be able to eat each and every piece of it. That is number one. It's not, I want Hass, or I want a Fiat or Pinkerton of that. I want quality. Quality is number one. And I want it to last in my fridge, and I want it, when I cut it up, the post slice, as André says, must be good. I don't want to throw away a very expensive fruit. Therefore, those things are very important. And I say, in breeding, as Hank Brokaw said, if you want to commercialize something new, you will have to face your critics, and they are there. I can tell you, we released Maluma in 2007. It came our way in 1998. And what a fantastic journey. The opinion that people had until telling me and try and argue with me what is good and bad of something that they know nothing about. So be aware that if you trespass in this field, it is, you need to have some nerves. Now, I think I should have said this when the slide was dark. I don't know what is the problem with my presentation there at the back. There are, no. Okay. No, it's jumping everywhere. Sorry for this. I don't know why. Don't blame the IT people. It's probably the file size that's too big. Okay, imports. Dark skin varieties. Talk to Mary Lou Apaya, and then you would see the difficult road that Gem was basically available to the trade. And I'm referring now to California, and if I say it wrong, Mary Lou, please forgive me. if it wasn't for Westphalia that went in and commercialized this cultivar, it would still have been on the shelf. And with negative perceptions such as we see with a beautiful cultivar like Lambas, for instance, also. Gwen, the green skin has, it was just shelved, but it's a beautiful cultivar with a high potential, but the housewife didn't like it. Right, here we are. This graph is just so that we have a proper reference on late varieties. Gem is a late variety. It's a club variety. It's exclusively also for woolies. You see the red arrow there. Just take note of that. It is round about here, I think in week 27, if I got it right. That way, it's 27. You basically at 29. It would exceed the 30 dry matter level. So between 27 and 29, it goes to that where I usually believe is sort of a cut-off level. The blue line is Hass, so that you could clearly see, obviously the higher the dry matter, the earlier, or vice versa, the cultivar. Good. Yes, there's another slide on dry matter of Gem compared to just another season to Hass. Right, now let's go into my selections, or our selections. First, the green skins. What came out of our program, although we planted Hass seeds, there was a green skin A1B, which has got good potential. W1, I'm very, very positive about. On the left, hard, and then ripe on the right-hand side. Where do they fit in? You could see A1B, and I use Hass as the reference because it's basically our mid-season cultivar. So everything that's where the dry matter is higher would be earlier, those that are lower would be later, so it's a good comparison to try and find out where would the selections fit in. This is a lot like a Feuerti. It's an A-type flower, or similar to Feuerti. Then W1, you could see it's a late cultivar. Now, I'm just now going to show you where does Rhine fit in, which we believe is a late cultivar. It's a B-type flower. Sorry, the A-type is Hass. I got it wrong just now. B-type is Feuerti, so this is similar to Feuerti. The other one is similar to Hass. So, that's the other thing that could be interesting, is that you could use a more acceptable variety for your pollinizers, that you don't use something that hasn't really got the marketing qualities, that purely just for the pollinization. So, yes, here it is. This is a beautiful cultivar. It crops well. There's a lot of things that is in it. Good. Now, here again, just for what it's worth, there would be, just want to get closer there, it's Rhine. Yes, you could see the yellow line is Rhine, and then you could see Pinkerton, and then you see W1. You could clearly see, although we let hang Rhine very late, look what the dry matter level is, and again in that particular week that I've mentioned here, it's far above 30. It's not a late cultivar. Just the nice thing, it never ripens. The true housewife never eats it. I think she throws her husband with it. Those of you that, if you really want to give somebody you like a lot, and a person that you want to have a good relationship with, at the end of the season, buy him Rhine. Maybe he would not be your friend anymore. My family doesn't like it when I give them Rhine. So there's the Pinkerton. You could see unfortunately, Pinkerton season is short, but you could see it follows the Pinkerton curve and is definitely on the later side. And I say it could fit in with Pinkerton, or even later if needs to. Good. Right, here are the dark skins. H1, W4, F2, DA8, D1, Q23, and Q5. So let's go on and just see where they fit in. H1 is dot on Hass. It crops extremely well. It's got a good sizing. It's actually the ideal sizing. It's between, I would say, count 14 and count 22, and peaks on a 16, 18. It's got a nice shiny skin from the outside. It looks great. The only problem is the seeds, the stone or the seed tends to be big. It's all these cultivars, by the way, has been tested by Nova Sun, basically for the Woolworths platform, and they were all accepted, with insert in brackets. A-type. This one, its productivity would make it very, very competitive, and you could see that on with us there. Good. And also A-type. Right, this one is one that I'm very, very interested in. It's slightly later than Has, but actually you should say it's dot on Has. Just look how it flowers. If it flowers, all the little fruitlets would set, and then later on they'll upsize, which I say is a very good thing. So you just need to manage your stress here, and obviously with all these new chemicals that we hear, it has a good set ability. Now it's just a matter of trying to carry most of that through. The nice strong thing about it is this small or the good seed flesh ratio. As you could basically cut anyone. It would be the odd ones with a bigger seed. It's central leader. It's got a lot of potential, I would say, as a high density cultivar, also an A-type flower. Right, this is a W4. Obviously, it can crop very heavily. It colors up nicely. It's those of you that know gem, it's got those little prominent lenticels on the skin, which makes it very attractive when it's ripe. And there you could see at the back the shape of the tree. You could see you could see the tendency towards central leader. Right, then F2. This is also a beaut. Just on the big side, slightly late, but it's a definite central leader. I think the sizing might be a problem, but stone flesh ratio, brilliant, and a very nice flesh and a good taste. F5, this one you could see is on the late side. This, if you now go to what I said, go and look where's the 30 line, I think it's there. You could see, it is definitely not as late as gem, but it's, I would say, between a Has and a gem. Then Q23, this one I love. It's light. It's a round fruit, small stone. It's a definite light. Tend to be a little big, but as the tree ages, it goes smaller, but it's a very, very productive tree. Unfortunately, no central leader characteristics. Then D1, this is also a definite light. There you could see now the comparison in week 29, actually, very similar to gem, and but you will not know the difference between this one and Has, standard Has. It doesn't crop that heavily. It's like Has in its growth habit, a bit too vigorous, but still the fortunate thing, it's light. And this could definitely fill that with your supermarkets, that Has gap. And the taste is very good, that it continues to be Has. This Sunday we'll have to decide if we're going to do piggyback. He hates the word piggyback. Good. Then DA8 this is also a definite light. It's got a fantastic taste. In the Zanin area where I farm, you could push it to December, sometimes to January. The unfortunate thing is it is very alternative. So if it crops heavily, the next year it wouldn't crop, but it can crop very, very heavy, as you can see here. Also A-type, big seed. And, this one is one that we definitely going to consider to release. I'll briefly just say something about it at the end of my talk. This is a chance seedling. This must have been, the olden days, probably they've planted Has as a rootstock seedling. And it's a dark skin. It crops well. It's a bit necky. Those of you that been on the international guests that were on the pre-symposium farm visits, saw the ones that Zander is growing up in the cooler area, and which you also sprayed with Sunny. It's easy to take care of this. Right, where does it fit in? If you look here, there's Hass. There you could now again, and the green line in this instance is lambas, which I didn't point it out to you just now. Lambas is later than gem. But for some reason, lambas didn't make it in this, let's say, as a club variety or whatever, and I think the protection expires next year in South Africa. It already expired, I think, in the States. Here you can see the coloration is good. It's got this little neck, but it's not difficult to take care of that. It is late. Look where that arrow is. That's again where it coincides with gem. It's a dot on top of, same season as gem. We're very positive about this one. It's one that Zander has already planted quite a large semi-commercial plot, over 3 hectares. There we are again. Yes, no, this is still the same slide. I think the number of photos that I've included here is just too many. Right, here you can see now, we talk of Maluma. I told you that was a chance seedling that came our way. It didn't go through the breeding program. This, you could just, it fits in nicely with what Zander said. If you look at the season, you'll see there's clearly 9 to 10 weeks from where you commence on basically 22 to 22% oil, and where the cutoff, as I believe, 30. You could obviously go past that, but that is a good spread, and it gives you a definite 2-month spread. Could be 2.5 months, I believe, is a good season. This is a photo that I took in the market years ago. Right, now Maluma's horticultural attributes. It doesn't get orchard cull damage. You know that it's one of the problems with Hass in low-lying areas, that if you get early frost, you could get this sort of a pulp burn, which is a problem. Maluma doesn't get it. Then Maluma forms the perfect basis for successful commercialization. The attributes it has is precocity, production, central leader, high density, high and ultra high density. This we've trialed. We've moved from the 800 to 1,600, basically because of the square shape of the orchard, of the layout, 2.5 by 2.5. We don't like it. So we believe it should be rectangular. Then you could see now 4 by 2. And you've picked up now that Zander's even considering a 3 by 1.5. And then you could see also here the central leader on left-hand side and the Tachura on right-hand side. Then other of the marketing attributes: fruit shape, fruit size, nice sizing. We've heard all this seed size. It's actually, I doubt if it's 15%. It's more closer to slightly lower than 10% of the fruit volume, but 10 to 15 is accurate enough. Superior shelf life and less oxidation of the flesh after ripening. You have seen what the post-ripening shelf life of this is. They've actually reported, the lower numbers. I've stored Maluma to the extent where it eventually turned into to brandy, where it fermented, and without any fungal problems. Right, this is the countries where Maluma is presently available. There's some few that added here. Guatemala is added now. Paraguay has been added. But that gives you where all these little dots are, where Maluma is in all those countries. In all the avocado producing countries, it is already. Since some countries it's recently been released. Some of them we're already full commercial. We're full commercial in Australia, South Africa, obviously, Spain, Israel, we've just commenced going full commercial, and then Peru also full commercial. Right, now future automation. It's getting expensive to pack avocados. You can't do it by hand anymore as my grandfather did it. So we use machines. We use automatic grading machines nowadays. We obviously automatic weighing. And the next step would be, and it's already in other fruit types, is where you get these packing equipment, basically where it packs the fruit for you. But it's not difficult to know that what you need here is round fruit. So has to a certain extent could make it. This photo I took at a large pack house in Israel, where they need to work them by hand and just turn them to position well to be sucked up. Now, this is one of the most interesting. Therefore, the commercial, or the commercial Maluma, in inverted commas, of the future needs to be round. And there it is. We have it. We found, it's actually a mutation that I found, and it's perfectly round. And the nice thing about a round fruit is that, again, the true housewife would like it because you could scoop it easily. There's no wastage. You eat the whole of the fruit. The other thing is it packs easier. It fits into boxes nicely. I don't know if you, who of you have dropped an avocado box and try and put those fruit back. It is very difficult. I tried the other day with Liesel. It's not easy. So then future research has already commenced with us. Where should you go to speed up? The route for breeding is, you've heard the words here, Nina Mitter used it, the sequencing of the avocado genome, and where you identify the genetic or molecular markers that is supportive to the unique attributes expressed by, in this case, Maluma. We believe that Maluma has got a lot of those attributes built into it, but you need to find the markers. And we are very fortunate that the selections that I've presented here, it's impossible that I could show everything to you. There's some of those selections that has got the ideal tree shape, the short internodes, etc., which you could then, in a breeding program or by finding those genetic markers, eventually bring you closer to that you're in a position to speed up the breeding and selection. Now, basically what it implies is you plant your seed again, ideally controlled if you can, but it's not controlled. You could basically just take a leaf of that. You know, there's this DNA type of thing where you just send that leaf away and it will tell you, yes, it tests positive for those markers, and that you're basically narrowing the process to get where you would like to get. Good. Muchas gracias. Danke. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I think basically just one thing that I would just like to add to my dad's presentation is the fact that I mentioned it shortly, that we've taken 3 of these cultivars now and started top working trees on our orchards to generate more fruit. So theoretically we're moving into semi-commercial trials with some of these cultivars, and obviously some of them with different risk levels. The way I like to explain it is that you know, Maluma today we would regard as a 1 or a 0 risk fruit in our opinion. And some of these cultivars will range between a 1 and a 5 for that matter. So basically what our plan is, one of the cultivars we already have about 4.5 hectares that started production this year, so we'll send the first fruit to market now. And there's basically an invitation within the growers that are structured in our club system with Maluma to approach us for those semi-commercial trials. The idea is basically to try and set up different locations and see faster how these fruit starts producing in those areas. So I think the best route would be to either discuss it with my dad and myself. There's a clear process that we follow, and it's already predefined rules basically. So the best would then basically be to explain those rules to you. But anyway, so that's it for now, and then yeah, so we'll go over into the panel discussions, and Edrean will lead that with regards to precision farming and data and information.
Just want to add a quick whatever to what Zander said here. One of the reasons why we've delayed any release of these materials and the testing is to get to the point because as Zander told us about 2 years ago, they started with the work on a brand. And for the reasons that I said to you just now, we just realized that we'll have to narrow the group that's involved and who are serious players with your variety. And so I have no doubt that to get access to these materials, you will have to partake in the VRV Club. That would be, and also with the rootstocks, it would be a prerequisite.
Okay, thank you very much, Edrean. Yeah, I think Edrean will first give an introduction, and then we'll have the panel.
Yeah, thanks, Zander. Yeah, like Zander said, we'll be proceeding now with a discussion around precision farming. So basically, we thought it a good idea to maybe get a couple of people together just to showcase what solutions and services there are out there as an example to include into your modern farming or precision farming, if you will, ecosystem. So we all know there's a lot of service providers out there and solutions, and it's sometimes quite difficult to figure out which ones are good and which ones are only promises. So we tried to showcase a couple of these. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, just as an introduction, give you an oversight of what we've been busy with at ALLESBESTE'S. I have a team of people that together we try to come up with some solutions to problems that we face in our own farming operation. And we try to shop around, see what's available out there, and sometimes the solutions might not be there, or other times the solutions don't quite fit what we're exactly trying to achieve. And we're lucky enough to have a couple of people with us that have the necessary skills, and we then try to develop these solutions ourselves. But nonetheless, we still try to, if we don't have to do it ourselves, it's always nice to get something off the shelf as well. Let me just get the clicker going. Okay, so just as a quick introduction, we see a farm management system as a system that's primarily there as a data collection mechanism. So we all know the ultimate purpose of such a system is to enable us as farmers, or in whichever business you are, to make proper decisions and better decisions and more precise decisions, and to know more precisely what's going on. And none of this can happen without the data or the information. So it's primarily a data collection mechanism. Then secondary and very importantly, also it needs to be a reporting mechanism as well, so that the decisions can be made. only having the raw data is not much of a help if you can't properly report on it and can't properly visualize it and can't properly understand it. So that's just as important. So how we see an ideal farm management system is in terms of being an integrated versus a fragmented system. So a fragmented system would be a system where you have different parts of a system gathering information, but none of these parts properly talk to each other. You have to go look at different places for different things, and you can't get a clear overview. So versus an integrated system where the opposite is true. Then the newest technologies should be implemented. There's no use having a system with old technologies. Just makes you stay behind. The pace of technology innovation, as you know, is tremendous in the time that we're living in, and it has to keep up. There's no use being stuck in the past. It needs to be under active development. That's closely related to new technologies being implemented. If it's not under constant development, it stagnates, and pretty soon you're sitting with an old, useless system. So it's pretty important that it needs to be under active development. We rather like the subscription model when it comes to software and even hardware devices, because in my opinion, it's a very good system that promotes company with a product to keep on innovating, because they need to keep you subscribed for their cash inflow rather than just selling a product off and the buck stops there. And then also it needs to be relevant. So what sometimes happens is systems get developed too widely. So it tries to cater for a too wide of a use case. And so for instance, like in the fruit sector, the developer needs to exploit a wide market for a wider base in terms of income. So the management system needs to cater for all different kinds of farming crops. So what happens in such a case frequently is that the specifics get lost, and you get bogged down in a lot of detail working with a system that's not applicable to your business. And that also makes it onerous to make use of such a system. And then in terms of automation, the gathering of the information and the data needs to happen as automatically as possible. So with as little human involvement as possible. The more human involvement there is, the more errors and the more problems you're going to have in the data. And accessibility is, it's no use sitting with a management system that only runs on one computer that sits there in the corner of the office, and everyone that wants to work on the system has to drive through and come and sit at that system and wait while nobody else is using it, and then sitting there to capture data or to get reports. So we need to make it accessible, or the system needs to be accessible. So you have to be able to access it from anywhere. The buzzword for a couple of years now is cloud-based. So that's just, you know, it doesn't need to be in the cloud. It just needs to be accessible. So however that may be defined. Then, okay, there we go. So I'm not sure, some of the small print might be unclear, but I'll run through it anyway. So if you imagine all these bubbles being fragments of a system, where you maybe have your irrigation system at one side, and then on this side you'll have your weather station running somewhere, and you'll have a labor management system and a payroll system and an ERP system, and maybe you'll have a separate system for harvesting, and then you're doing some insect scouting or something on another system, and you have your fleet management software, and maybe even a separate fuel management system that runs your fuel tanks and transactions with that. And maybe you're doing some soil moisture probes as well, trying to gather soil moisture data. And that's typically the problem that you sit with. You have all these systems, maybe from different people, and in isolation, all these systems work very nicely, and they give you lots of nice information, and it's all that you wanted. But in the end, you're sitting with an issue where it would really be nice if this irrigation system and that weather station could talk to each other and maybe provide a better idea of what's going on and what's coming, so that you can make better decisions in terms of irrigation scheduling, for example. And so it goes with all these things, you know, maybe even the soil moisture probes will fit in there. And you really want something to pull all these loose strings together. And that's a major problem that we were sitting with, that there's nothing really, in the worst case, you would even have systems where a system wouldn't be able to even talk to another system. Doesn't matter what you want to do, it's just not capable of doing that. But nowadays, luckily, we're seeing more and more a move towards systems being able to integrate with other systems, being able to automatically allow other systems to pull data from this particular system. So that's a nice thing, but you really need that middle part to pull everything together, to consolidate everything and make it integrated. So that's the problem we were faced with. And so this is what a major part of what me and my team are doing on a day-to-day basis, is we're trying to create that circle there, where we have an integrated system and we can communicate with all these different systems from there and pull the information together and try and get a clear picture of what's going on, and to make better decisions, better reporting, etc. So the other thing is, sometimes we will find that certain systems might not fit nicely, as I said earlier. So we would also be involved on some of these outside things, creating systems that's a bit more applicable to what we're trying to achieve. So one of these things, this is an example where we're doing soil moisture scouting. So we had a idea that, well, we have this paper-based system where people go out with a soil drill, and they'll drill and take a soil sample and see what the moisture content is, and then write it on a piece of paper, come back to the office, and it'll go into an Excel somewhere. And you sort of knew the whole time that you're not sure if the people out there are doing it correctly, because there's no way to know where they drew the sample exactly, so that you can go and check if they're doing it correctly. You weren't sure if they were doing it, if they even visited the orchard to do the sampling, or if it was just sort of window dressing. And so we thought, well, it would be nice to have something electronic, and we looked around, and at that time we couldn't really find anything that would do all the smart things, because we had a lot of other ideas, like it needs to, as soon as someone did a scouting that's outside of the parameters that we set, we wanted to generate automatic notifications to people and all those things. And we couldn't really find a system that did all of that. So we set out to develop something. And this is what we came up with. This is just screen grabs from a cell phone. This is the part of the app. So just those of you that are a bit rough on the Afrikaans. Please excuse all the Afrikaans. With a custom-based system and being an Afrikaans business, we do it in Afrikaans. So, but I'll translate for you. So basically, when you go into the scouting part of the app, you will get a map like this. The system in the database knows it's populated with our data of where each block is. So it'll pull that data and represent it on the map for you. So this is just one farm, and you can see all the blocks, the individual blocks there, the orchards. And so it'll show you that. And when there has been a scouting, it will also drop pins on where exactly it was done, along with the color coding according to that color scale as you see there. I'll discuss that just now. And it'll use the cell phone's GPS. Now, the nice thing about cell phones or smartphones these days and tablets are that they created with all these wonderful sensors and instruments built into them. So you automatically already have access to a GPS, you have access to accelerometers, you have access to onboard barometers, and all these nice things that come included there. And all you need is software to access those hardware to get the information. So this uses the onboard GPS of the cell phone or the tablet, wherever you're running it, and it'll pinpoint your position. And if it sees that you're inside a specific polygon there, it'll identify automatically in which block you are, and it'll display it there like you see there. And then this icon will be enabled. You will tap that, and this pop-up comes on, and it'll give you the option of choosing your grading of soil moisture according to a 1 to 5 scale. So where 1 is basically as dry as it can get, and 5 is as wet as it can get. And we aim to be around, definitely not wetter than 4, and not drier than a 2, and you're obviously aiming for the middle part there. And it would obviously also depend on what you're trying to achieve, but generally that's the case. So you would save this, and it'll, if it has an internet connection, it'll automatically save the data to the central database to be accessible immediately by anyone else looking at a dashboard. And if there's no internet connection, it'll just save it locally, and as soon as the device has a connection again, it'll upload everything to the database. I think we just, there we go. Okay, so this is the web part of the system, so the web-based platform or front end. So this is where you can log in, and we'll have a dashboard displayed, also a map like this. So with the soil moisture, you'll just activate the soil moisture layer there, and you'd be able to look at where all the soil moisture scouting was done and what the gradings are and everything. This example here is crop estimates that we're doing. So basically, people will also walk through with a tablet or a cell phone or something. They'll walk through, the tablet will, just like with the soil moisture scouting, it'll recognize in which orchard you are based on the GPS position, and you can walk through and start doing your estimates on the trees visually. So what we're doing is we try to do about 10% of the orchard. We like to try and scout that. But the system, you can decide how many trees you want to do your estimates on, and it'll look on the orchard statistics data, how many trees, what's the total tree count in the block. It'll determine how many trees you did an estimate on, and it'll make the calculation to determine the total crop estimate based upon that. the other nice thing is that every estimate you capture, it also captures the position where you did that. So it can be plotted on the map, and together with that, you can produce a bit of a heat map which shows, according to your estimates, where more fruit is and where there's not so much fruit. To the side here, it'll show you the total amount of units you've estimated, and this shows your estimates for a couple of seasons over time. So in this block, you can see there's a bit of a upward trend, and it can obviously be for various reasons, which is quite interesting to see. Then another system that I just quickly like to mention as well is we built a system which the hardware for it's quite cheap. It's off-the-shelf things, hobby-type devices that you just program and put sensors on. And what we're doing with this is we manage water levels in reservoirs where you typically have a water source where you're abstracting water from and you're storing it somewhere else, in a dam or a reservoir. So the need here was that we needed to know exactly how much we're abstracting and when we're doing it and what the flows were. And so what's flowing into the reservoir, what's flowing out of the reservoir, and where is it going. And we also needed to know when things went wrong as well. So when the tank or the reservoir level went too low, we wanted to be notified. When the pumps needed to be started and wasn't started, we needed to know about that. If there's a pump that's pumping but there's nothing going into the reservoir, we wanted to know about that because it could be a burst pipe. So all these things we wanted to have, and we wanted to have it automatically and in real time. So we developed that system along with the hardware, and this is basically a dashboard where you can see all of it. And there's a lot of nice information that you can get from this. So the bottom graph here is the reservoir level. So you can see that's the flows. The yellow part is the inflow, and the blue part there is the outflow. So you can see when there's an inflow, you can see the rise of the level until it gets to the full level, then it switches off. And as the water is being used, it goes down. So you can see exactly what's happening throughout the day, or whatever time series you want to look at. You can see what's going on. You can easily and quickly see what's the current water level. You can see what's the battery voltage of the equipment, because there's not necessarily always mains power available. So things need to run off battery power, or maybe off a solar panel or something. You want to see what's going on there, if it's still healthy. And this is over the time period, what's the total inflow been in liters, and what's the total outflow to that specific place been in liters. This is over time, the outflows. So the blue part here at the bottom are outflows, and the top parts are inflows. So you can see how it balances out there as well. So that's just quite interesting to see. Excuse me. Okay, I'm just trying to, there we go. Okay, so this is also, excuse the Afrikaans there, but this is then from that system, notifications that can be generated. This is text messages that get sent to us if things go wrong. So there's a text message that came in that says the water level in the water tanks are low, and there's only 12,990 liters remaining in the reservoir. This says the main tank's water level became low, and We've got 2 reservoirs. So the one is the spare, and it's there for emergency purposes. And it's got a solenoid valve on it. And as soon as the system sees that the main tank's water level has become too low and the inflow is not able to supplement it, then it automatically opens the solenoid valve of the spare tank so that the water can come out of that, and it gives you a notification so that you're aware that that happened. Then this one just says there's a tank overflow, and that one says there's a tank overflow, and it does a bit of diagnostic as well. It looks at all the sensors and it tries to make a determination. So it says it might be that the float valve that regulates when the tank is full could be faulty. So that's just a couple of interesting things that you can get notified of. Then in the nursery, we also had an issue where we had temperature and humidity loggers in our different areas. We had it mainly in the greenhouses, but also in some etulation rooms as well. The problem with them was that you could get continuous data out of them, but you couldn't get it in real time. You needed to go there, take the sensor out, go to the computer, plug it in, download the data, and go and put it back again. And, you know, as things go, you get busy, and you sort of think the temperatures are fine, and it's been a while since you've looked at them, but they seem to be fine, the plants are happy, so you forget for a couple of weeks to go and take the logger out because you're busy. So that became a problem. The other thing is the sensors were quite expensive, and the ones that we had became faulty. So we thought, instead of buying expensive sensors, again, let's build something. So we built this thing. So it's basically just a device which also, once again, you can just buy off the shelf of a hobbyist electronics store. Nowadays, you get very good electronics that you just buy off the shelf and program it quite easily, and you've got something going. Plug and play almost. So we did that, slapped a couple of sensors on there. There you can see is a temperature sensor. And we also have humidity, and in some places where it made sense, we also put in CO2 sensors to monitor the CO2 levels. Okay, so this is then basically part of the dashboard that you can get from that. So for a specific greenhouse, we have gauges there that can tell us what, at the moment, what's the temperature there, what's the humidity there, and what's the CO2 level there. And obviously, this can also then generate those same type of notifications for us. So the problem with the system we weren't continuously monitoring is that you could get exceedances in terms of temperature, and you wouldn't know about it before it was too late. Now, the moment it happens, you get an SMS, and you can go and investigate what's wrong. Did the fan not start? The wet wall, something wrong? What's going on because we're exceeding on our temperatures? So before you suffer losses in terms of the plants. Okay, so then obviously you can also get graphs over time of what the temperature did. This is the temperature at the top. And that's the, no, I think I went one too far. There we go. That's the humidity down there. So you can see this is the evening. That's the morning during the day. So you can see during the evening, low temperatures. You can see those waves there. We've got diesel burner heaters installed, which start up on a thermostat. So there you can see when the temperature drops, the burners start up, and you see the temperature rise, and then it switches off, and it goes on like that. You can see the humidity during the evening. We're basically at 100% humidity because the fans don't turn on, and so everything is closed and the humidity builds up in there. And then during the day, you see the humidity drop, and you can monitor it throughout the day, what's going on there. Then the other thing is we started also during the winter, especially when it's very cold, we started to see some burn on the leaves. And by looking at this, we could make a hypothesis of what it probably was. And you can see as the burners start up, how the CO2 levels goes up. You can see during the day, this is basically the atmospheric CO2 levels. So there's a significant build-up in CO2 in the greenhouse during the evening when the fans are off and the burners start up and generate some CO2 in there. So it's nice to have something like this, so you can make plans around it, try and see if you can get those levels down in some way. This is also something interesting. Because we're running the burners, they generally tend to run at night, but they have limited capacity in terms of diesel in their tanks. So we need to have personnel that come in during the night to refill those tanks. And this is something where you can see that the burners start up, and obviously there the burners ran out of diesel, and the temperature dropped. And then the guy that had to check it up pitched, fortunately not too late, and he refilled the tanks, and it went on again until it ran out of diesel again, and it seemed to be a bit warmer there. The decline in temperature was a bit more gradual, and this is daybreak, and it started warming up again. So it's nice to see this when things go wrong, where exactly things went wrong. And you can also, obviously, when that temperature drops below the bottom threshold and it gets too cold, someone will get an SMS. Okay. The presentation seems to be a bit slow. Let me just make sure. There we go. Okay, so the other thing is we've got a harvesting system as well, where we wanted also something that's real time. We wanted to measure weights in the field so that we can know exactly how many kilograms we were harvesting in field, and we wanted to know where we are harvesting how much exactly, so that we can draw up maps according to that as well. So we developed this system as well. Sorry, you can see there, it's just basically an electronic scale. We retrofitted the scale with a Bluetooth radio so that it can communicate with a tablet. We run our software on the tablet, and it can get the reading from the scale. And the tablet is also used to do the whole transaction for each and every worker that comes with his bag and puts it into the bulk bins. This is the bulk bin trailers here to the left, and you can see where we went through a couple of iterations of where to mount the scales and everything, and this is what we eventually came up with, is at the back of the trailer we have a little arm there where the scale can just attach with a pin, and when the trailer is full, you take off the scale, put it onto the next one, and off you go. Yeah, this is just the screens of the apps. That's the login screen of the app. So that's just the list of, how we work is we have harvesting instructions where it's an instruction to go harvest on a specific day, a specific harvesting team, and a specific orchard, and with a specific target. So that's just a list of those instructions. So the operator of the tablet would then choose the appropriate instruction. It'll go to this screen. Initially, this screen would be empty. And as transactions happen, this is populated with each worker and with his stats. And it's ordered according to how well that worker is performing in terms of the amount of bags he's bringing in per hour. So what's nice about this is that workers get immediate feedback on their performance, where they stand in terms of their target. So each time they do a transaction, they can look at that screen and they know exactly they should pick up their pace or they're okay or whatever. What's also happened is that some of them compete against each other for, I don't know, street cred or something. And then you'll see they try to race each other and compete against each other. So that's also quite beneficial. The other thing is, sorry, up there, let me just go back one. Okay, never mind. So when you start a new transaction, when the worker comes with his bag, you'll go to this screen. We've got an RFID scanner, and each worker is issued with an RFID tag to identify himself. He'll identify himself. The system will know who he is. You'll put the bag on the scale. The scale will get the reading. As soon as the reading's stabilized, you can save it, and I haven't got that screen here, but it'll initially ask you, okay, in which bin are you putting this fruit? And the bin has got a barcode on it. You'll scan the barcode, and each bin can be uniquely identified in that way. So in doing that, we also know exactly how many kilograms are in each bin, and a supervisor can come through, scan the bin, and he'll get a figure of exactly how many bags are in there and how many kilograms are in that bin. We also obviously then know how many bins there are at any given time and how full they are. So, and this is some of that information. This is a little screen that you can pull up there just to get the information for that specific activity. So it'll tell you what's the total of number of bags that have been harvested, how many workers are you busy with, how long have you been working, just some nice stats that's nice to know while you're harvesting. Obviously, the supervisor or the farm manager or whoever can even can be in the office or can even be overseas or wherever and can log onto this app and see what's going on with each of those instructions. Then afterwards, this is just a report that we generate. So this basically then just tells you after the fact what happened. So this is the list of all the workers that was in that specific team, on that specific day, in that specific orchard. And that's hours harvested for each person. That's the target amount of bags that should have been harvested for the amount of hours. That is the actual amount that was harvested by that person. And that just shows the target per hour. And that shows the achieved amount per hour. That figure there is the total amount of bags that was harvested, and I'll elaborate on those as well. So as I've mentioned, we've got a target, which is in terms of amount of bags per hour, and this is a histogram that's then built that shows you that zero is 0 bags above the target. That's 1 above the target, 2 above the target, 3 above the target, and also on the minus side, 1 below the target, 2 below the target, 3 below the target, and so on. So, and the bars are the amount of workers in this team that fell into that category. So what we try to do here is this is how we see how good our targets were and how reasonable they were. So in this, you would generally try to keep it at the 0 so that most people were on target, and you sort of had a normal curve where some people were below and some people above. And sometimes something like this would also be nice, being that most people was 1 over. Because it's nice in terms of being motivational, because they would also get bonuses in terms of if they overachieved. Okay, so then, right, in this column, That's just aggregate information, how many workers was in that team, what was the available hours. So available hours is just the maximum of these hours there, and that's just an indication of the amount of hours that was available on that day to harvest. And so this is utilized hours, so that's the average of all these hours here. So that's a measure to tell you if that is your available hours and that is your utilized hours, did you utilize all the available hours? That's just a measure to show you that. That's the average per worker, average bags per worker that was harvested. That's the average bags per hour that was harvested, and that's the average bags per worker that was harvested. So just some aggregate figures. That's the projected total down there, and that's just a calculation that if all the workers performed exactly on target, what would have been the total. So if you look at those two figures, you'd be able to see if you were overachieved or not. I'm just quickly going to show you this. This is just a report that we print and give to them, to the workers, to show them what amounts they get as bonuses. The minuses there are just indications of it's let's say a value to the underachievement. We don't generally subtract that, but it's just a measure that you can look at and see that what's the cost of the underperformance, if I can put it like that. Then also I mentioned that when we harvest, for each transaction we capture the GPS coordinate as well. So that's just dots that show those coordinates, the points. And what you could do is for every one of those points you have a kilogram value. And you can use all that to make a nice heat map like this. And what's nice about this is you can then see where most of the fruit came from when you harvested that orchard. And obviously you can then try and see if you can find out what the reason for that was and if it's expected or not, and whatever. So it's just nice information to have. This is just for interest's sake. For us, harvesting in bulk bins is quite a new principle. We always used to harvest in what we call lug boxes, which is crates which take about 15 or 16 kilograms of fruit. And the problem with that is there's a lot of crates that needs to be handled and loaded and offloaded and all of that. So we moved over to the bulk bins, and this is just to see if it was a good move. And what we can see from here is this is the efficiency of how we harvest. So that's the amount of units per hour that we achieve on the different systems. So you can see consistently since we've been utilizing bulk bins, we've overachieved, or we've had better efficiency in terms of units per hour harvested on the bulk bins. So it's definitely going much quicker on the bulk bins. Then you can see here the measure is it's basically 20% faster to use bulk bins. We've had a total of 53,500 harvesting transactions on the system up to date, with 604 unique bins, just a matter of interest. So in conclusion, this was just to give you an idea of what we're busy with. Now, usually when on different platforms, when I present these things, I usually get inquiries afterwards from people that have the same need as us, and inquiring about whether we can try and implement our system on their farm as well. And the problem we had previously is that our system was, it was a system where we had our own server on premises, and it relied on our infrastructure that we had on the farm to work. So it wasn't really accessible for anyone else, and I had to give people sort of that indication. But what we've did is, mostly for our own benefit, is we've moved our infrastructure to public infrastructure to do away with maintaining our own things and our own networks. So, but what this has allowed us to do is that we are now able to accommodate other people on our system as well, because it is accessible now from anywhere, and you don't need to have your own infrastructure anymore. So what we're going to do is, if you are interested in any of this, we're going in what we're calling our limited public participation preview, a lot of P's in there. So what we would like to do is, if you are interested, please go to that website there. It's just a form that captures your information, and we will be in contact with you. And our idea is so that interested parties can sit together and we can try and see. Our main goal with our system is still to be of benefit to us, and for us to build infrastructure that will help us in our own business. But if it can help someone else, we're willing to see if we can find a way for people to come on board and to make use of the system. So our idea is, if we've gathered all this information, we'll be in contact, and we can maybe organize some one-on-one visits, or maybe if there's a couple of people together in a specific area, we can have a sit together and try and figure out how we can maybe assist someone to use some of these technologies that we have developed. That QR code, if you don't want to write that down or take a photo of that, if you scan that QR code, it'll give you the link to that on your phone, and you can fill in the form. Otherwise, just take a photograph of this and go to the website afterwards. So that's my story. It was a bit longer than I wanted it to be. So I'd just like to quickly call on everyone part of the panel, you know who you are, to please come forward so that we can get your inputs. So as I've said, the idea here is not for us to showcase our system, but to showcase all the systems that are out there and that are worth considering, and also the services. So we asked a couple of people to join us up here, and each of them will have a chance for a presentation to tell you about their product and their service, and we can then have a discussion about that. Please take a seat. Yes, yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, firstly, I'd just like to introduce Johan Krier. He's from Husqvarna, and he's going to talk to us about the Husqvarna fleet services. It's quite a nice system. Some of you might have heard the term IoT, or Internet of Things, being thrown around, and what that basically just is it refers to devices being out there in the wild and gathering information and data and getting it into your system. And Husqvarna's fleet services has devices like that, which Johan will tell us about on their products, just to gather that information. But I'll leave it to him to explain exactly. Thank you, Johan.
Thank you, Edrean. You can just get the presentation up there. Just quickly, you all know part of your daily routine on the farm is using expensive equipment to do your maintenance, your harvesting, and so forth on your farm. What Husqvarna has done as a power product supplier, a world leader in power products, is we have looked at what our customers' needs are, and we have found that in most cases, that's the part of your daily business that you neglect. If I can just ask the question, when is your equipment normally serviced? Most of you will say, when it breaks. Am I lying, or is that the truth? That's the truth. Guys, you don't do the same with your car. Your car is an expensive piece of equipment, and you maintain it regularly to keep it in the best standards. So should you do with your machinery that you use on the farm on a daily basis as well. Because we all know they're not cheap anymore. It's very, very expensive stuff. All right, so Husqvarna has come up with the Husqvarna Fleet Services, which will help you to manage your equipment better. All right. So there we have it, the easy way of keeping track of your equipment. Husqvarna Fleet Services, as you can see, and we spoke about it, Edrean has spoke about it as well. Cell phone app, we all run our businesses basically off our cell phones or tablets nowadays. Okay, runs off a cell phone app. We've got a little dongle there, or we call it a Fleet Services tag, which fits on the outside of your machine. How does it work? What is Fleet Services? As I said earlier on, it's an add-on product. And if you look at the orange circle there, one of the questions most people will ask us, but I don't have Husqvarna products. I use something else. It works on any brand of product. Okay, very important thing to notice. Works on any brand of product. But besides that, with technology in power products nowadays turning to electric and also battery, which my colleague talked about earlier today, your normal sensors would normally work on a petrol machine where it will read your spark of your engine. The Husqvarna Fleet Services tag will actually read the electric current of an electric machine as well. So it works perfectly well on a battery product. You can actually put it on your bakkie as well if you want, or on your tractor. As long as there's an electric current that flows while the product is in use, you can use it. Okay, so what does it give you? Machine location on the top left there. At this stage, it will give you the location of the cell phone of which it last uploaded through. Okay, we all know now cell phones, they've got integrated GPS. So as soon as your machine uploads through the cell phone, and that can be your operator in field that's got the app on his phone, or your supervisor, or whoever visits him during the day, as it uploads, it will give you a GPS location of where that machine is. As soon as the data is uploaded, of course, it's available on the cloud, and you can access it from anywhere in the world, from a smartphone, a tablet, or your computer. So it's real-time data that's available to you in any time, at any given time. Okay. Your machine statistics. That's a word that I'm struggling with. Okay, machine statistics. It will tell you in your fleet of products, how often are you using certain types of products? How many machines do I have? And what type of products I use more often and which not? A service overview. It's got a built-in maintenance logging program. So your sensor will read your hours that the machine has worked. As it is uploaded into the cloud, it automatically counts the hours the machine has worked, and it will flag you when it's time to maintain your machine. You can then also, as soon as a service or repair has been done, you can also add in any additional information you want to add in there. So for example, if you want to log your fuel usage, you can go and log it in your maintenance program. Okay. Automo, I'm not going to talk about that now. That's something I don't think you will use in the near future on your farms, maybe in your homesteads. And then your inventory control. You have an overview of all your machines that you've loaded into the system. All right, so inventory, just as a matter of interest there, your sensors is subscription based. So for every sensor you have, you will pay a subscription fee, which is a minimal fee. But it does not mean you have to have a sensor on your whole fleet. You can, for example, have a team of guys using brush cutters. They're using 5 brush cutters a day. You can put a sensor on one of the brush cutters to monitor your team's performance. But you can load every brush cutter into your inventory and you won't pay a subscription for that. Okay. So there's your dongles on the left-hand side. Those are your connected sensors. They get added onto the outside of your machine, close to where your electric current or your spark is. And those sensors, while the machine is running, it will collect all the data that needs to be collected. Revolutions, is it idling, is it running, is it actually cutting, all of those things. And as soon as you switch off your machine, and you are within Bluetooth range of a cell phone that has got the app connected to it and it's locked in, it will actually upload to the cloud. All right, so there's your app. And as I said earlier, your website, that's where it sits on the cloud, and that you can access in real time from anywhere in the world, from a smartphone, tablet, or from the internet. How does it work? You can see there on the right, on the brush cutter, the sensor is fitted there, and that will pick up and collect all the data. As I said earlier, I'm not going to spend too much time on there. We want to run through it quickly. Just as a matter of interest, we are not there yet. That's why it's not in my presentation. But currently we are working on all the new products that Husqvarna brings out from 2020 onwards. That is a commercial quality product. We'll have fleet services built into the machine already. That means you won't have to buy a dongle to add it on, but you can still buy your dongles for your other brands of equipment and your other products. Okay, so then you will only, if you're already on, you will just add it on and you will start paying a subscription fee, and you can just carry on from there. So it works through a mobile app. We've got 2 apps. The one is called the Gateway app, and then the other one is called the Fleet Services app, where the uploading goes through. The Gateway app is normally a stationary phone we will put in our storeroom or in a vehicle or something like that, and that will upload the machines as they are in your store at night. And it will actually give you a status. You can't see there, but the little green status there, it means it's on the shelf. So you will know which of my products are in the storeroom and which ones are not. When it uploads through the Fleet Services app, which your operator or your supervisor will have on his phone during the day, it will give you a status of out working. And when it's not recognized by any of the 2 apps within 12 hours, it will actually give you a status of unknown. And unknown means I must go and investigate what happened to my machine. Was it maybe stolen? Is the battery gone flat? Or whatever it is. Okay. On that quickly, I know the questions will come up there. Can I track my machine if it gets stolen? Unfortunately, at this point, we cannot, because it works through the GPS of the phone. So if it hasn't uploaded within 12 hours, I won't know where it is. But I will know where it has last uploaded and where I can start searching for where the machine is. Okay. Automa did not talk about. When we get to the slide of how it works, I will explain more of where we are going with this. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's your Fleet Services website. So when you open your web portal, you have a nice overview of dashboard there of all your machines. It gives you your inventory. It gives you your status of all your machines. If you see the top 2 there, it's grayed out. That means it's unknown. The greens are out working. It gives you your machine numbers. On the right-hand side, you actually have a map there which gives you your locations of where your machines are, where they last uploaded. Okay. I don't know if you can see the bottom two slides on the right-hand side, just next to the map. There's a little yellow spanner. Can you see that? Okay. Those machines, if it's got a spanner there, it means the maintenance system is activated for that machine. If the spanner turns yellow, it means your machine needs to be serviced within the next 2 weeks or 1 week, whatever you set it as. When that spanner turns red, it means it needs to be serviced right away, or it's overdue already. Okay, so just on an overview there, you can immediately look at your whole fleet and you can see what needs to be done with your machines. What will it tell you? So there, what machines do we have? We spoke about that. Where did we last have it? How much have we used it? What is the company's carbon footprint? That is something new that was added to this fleet services during last year, late of last year. It's something South Africa is not big on yet, but Northern America and Europe is very big on carbon footprint. And I think for you guys, that's something that will be of interest for you in the future as well, is what's my carbon footprint of the machines that I use, or even my vehicles, whatever it is. Okay. Is it time for servicing? It will tell you that. What is the service history? Very important. How many of us know what is the service history of our machines? And you all know, what does it cost to go and service a brush cutter, for example, or a chainsaw? It costs a lot of money. But if I don't keep track of it for the last year or the last 2 years or however old that machine is, I don't know what my spend was on the lifetime on that machine. So very importantly, it will give you that. And you also add in the cost of every service or repair. At any given time, you can then also go and download your full maintenance history of your whole fleet into Excel, from where you can go and manipulate whatever you want. What was my cost for the last month, for the last year, on only brush cutters, on only chainsaws, whatever you want to do. It's endless what you can get out of there. Okay. What will the dashboard tell me? Few dots there. So the dashboard gives you a few cards, few different cards. First one, it will give you my machines and inventory, just a broad overview there. If you see the circle there, you've got 43 machines in total loaded onto the system. Grass trimmers is 33, 43, forestry clearing saws is 7, and so on and so on. So I immediately know what machines and how many of each do I have, just by looking at that. I can also see the status of my machines. 42 of them are on the shelf at this given point. Out working, nothing. Unknown, nothing. Not connected as one. As I said earlier, you don't have to connect all your machines. You might feel that some of them don't need to be connected, but you can have it on here, and it will tell you how many is not connected. Service reminders. So you set a service reminder for every piece of equipment. Some of them you might not want to put a service reminder in for any given reason, and that will be given as an off there. So if you can see there, the off is 9. 10 of them are on, and of that 10, 10 of them are actually due for a service at this given point. So something needs to be done about it. My machine usage. This is where the inventory control comes. It's a little bit confusing. This battery going flat. Hello? Okay. This is Hello? Okay, that's better. What's confusing in this slide, if you can look at the left-hand graph there, you'll see the orange line, flat lines at the bottom. Then it spikes up right up to 100%, comes down again, spikes up again. And then it runs top for a few days there. The turquoise line there runs 100% all the time. Okay, so what that tells me, it's not specific to a machine, but it's specific to a machine type. So for example, the turquoise line might be, I've got one chainsaw or 10 chainsaws, and I'm using all 10 every day. So my chainsaws are running at 100% productivity every day. What does that mean? If suddenly 2 of those chainsaws break down, what's that going to do to my productivity? So from that little graph, I can then plan, and going forward, I can see, all right, my chainsaws are running 100% constantly. If something happens, some of them break down for whatever reason, I'm going to have a problem. So I need to get more chainsaws. Okay. If you look at the one which is spiking up and down there, what that means is, for example, you have only one pole pruner, but you don't use it every day. So for a few days, about a week there, it shows there you haven't used it at all. Then you've used it one day, you've used the machine, so it gives you 100% usage for that day. Doesn't mean to say it's been used for 8 hours for the day. It could be 10 minutes, could be an hour, whatever. It just means it worked on that day. Do we all understand that? Very confusing, but yes, we'll go into more depth when we do the in-field demonstration tomorrow. Then we'll discuss this in more depth. Okay. And then on the right-hand side, it just gives me an average of all my chainsaws, average running hours per day. Okay. This is the carbon footprint calculator. As I said, at this stage, I don't think it's something that you guys are really interested in, but in future, it might be of interest. When I go to my machines tab, it opens up all my machines as an overview, and it tells me as an overview what I need to know about the machines. Then I've got a people tab as well. So if I have this account, it doesn't mean that Zonda is the only guy that can access this, because he's the account owner. He can go and add in as many people as he wants to go and manage the system for him. You can also add them as a manager or as a technician. So your technician, for example, you will add as a technician, and you'll only be able to work on the maintenance side of it. You won't be able to delete or add machines and so forth. Okay. And then it will give you how many people are actually managing the system, and you can manage it at any time. If a guy, for example, leaves the company, you can go and take him off. No problem, you can add on a new person. This is a slide here where you can see this is a typical park, so it's not really your line of business, but in principle it stays the same, how it works. Okay. So if you look at where the line goes now, that is a professional automower. I don't know if you all can see, there's a little cloud over the automower with the arrow pointing up. Our professional automowers currently are GPS connected, and they come with fleet services pre-installed as well. So what that means is you don't need to go to that automower with your app to upload. It uploads automatically in real time. Can you guys remember when I spoke about it earlier, talking about currently if a machine gets stolen, I cannot track it. Okay, so that currently our professional automower has got it built in. If that machine gets stolen and it ends up on Mount Everest, I will know exactly where it is. I can go and find it. All right. That is what we're also working towards now with all the Husqvarna professional products. Within the next year or two, it will be built in, and you will be able to track your machine in real time, and you don't need to have the app close by to know what its location is. Does that sound exciting? I think so. Just again, that's our web portal there. We've spoken about it. I'm not going to discuss that much further. Just again, just to repeat, as soon as your data is uploaded, it is live in your web portal from anywhere in the world, and you can see your actual data. That is your gateway app. So typically, as I explained, is you will put a smartphone in your storage area, And during the night, your machines will all upload its data, and you will also have your status of on the shelf. So you will know what machines are in the store, and all your data will be uploaded. That little guy there, you can see he's out of the big blue circle, which means he's not within Bluetooth range of the app at this given time. So what can I do with that? If I have a supervisor that needs to go and visit a team of people, he's not with them constantly, we've got a few teams in field, I can start managing my supervisor through this. How will I know that he has visited all his guys? If that guy on the pathway there does not upload within a certain amount of hours that I've set for my supervisor, I will know that he hasn't visited the guys. So I can also manage him. I can do people management with the system as well, as an add-on. Okay. So there we have our Fleet Services app. As you can see, the little cloud there, and all the machines that's within the Bluetooth range, they will upload in real time, and you will get the data. And then our subscription model. Firstly, the sensor you buy, the customer owns the sensor. That sensor can be transferred from one machine to another. So it doesn't mean if you buy a new chainsaw, you put a sensor on it. When I replace this chainsaw, I throw away the old chainsaw with the sensor. You don't have to. You deactivate the sensor on that machine, and you just reactivate it on a new machine. All right. You buy it just as you buy a machine, so that means you own it as the customer. It is now yours. All right. And then the subscription pricing is based on volume of connected products, firstly, and then secondly, the agreement plan or period. So your volume of connected products, there's the highest price is from 1 to 99 connected products. From 100 to 299 becomes cheaper, and at 300 and above it becomes cheaper. Okay, 1,000 above even more cheap. And then your agreement plan as well. If you have a monthly agreement plan, that's your most expensive. Then we also have an annual plan as well as a 24-month plan, which will then be your cheapest as well. Pricing I'm not going to discuss here. We will discuss that later on, maybe in the panel or tomorrow or when you visit our stand. Okay. And then for 2020, we're running a campaign where your first 3 months will be free. So that's your trial period. You buy your sensors. We activate your account. For 3 months, you will not pay any subscription. And after 3 months, if you feel I don't want to carry on, we will actually buy back the sensors from you. That's how much we believe in our system. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johan. Are there any questions for Johan on this system? Comments? Nothing. I guess tomorrow...
Yes, I've got a question.
There you go.
So the only way to export the data currently is to download data via Excel. So you can't access the data through an API or anything like that.
Okay, so currently, yes, you can download or export your data to Excel. From there, you can import it back into another system. But there are also the ways of, if you have a system which you want to integrate it in with, we talk to Sweden, it's a Swedish product, and then they will write the algorithms and all of that to be able to do the transfers.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'm sure with the demonstration tomorrow, there'll be a bit more questions and comments after they see it in action. Is it my mic or that mic? I think it's mine. Maybe it's too loud. Okay, with that, I just like to introduce Llewellyn and Lawrence. I think some of you that have been at previous Maluma days, I think the the previous one of last year. Zander and I talked about how we did our orchard development at ALLESBESTE'S using GIS, and we will say something about it a bit later as well. But Llewellyn and Lawrence have taken it a couple of levels further. Llewellyn is an ecologist, and he brings in a totally new dimension into it. So I'd like to introduce them. Their company is called Node Ecology, and they'll tell you a bit more about themselves. So, yeah, we just need to change them.
Can we switch off the lights? Here we go. Oh, that's better. Okay, great. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that I'm talking to an empty audience, but what I do hope is that all of you are interested in either ecology or developing orchards on complex terrains, because otherwise this is not going to be interesting for you. But nevertheless, thanks Edrean for the introduction. I'm Llewellyn, this is Lawrence. I'm not born, but brought up, raised in this lovely valley and went to this prestigious Mariinsky High School. People often ask me what I do for a living, and I struggle to come up with a proper answer because I don't really know what I do. I know people, professionally I'm an ecologist, and I travel the world, and I've been to every major biome and worked in every major biome and every major sector throughout the world. But lately the agricultural sector has proven to be, or to at least have a lot of exciting new opportunities, especially when it comes to ecology. So with that said, let's start. So I'll aim to provide a brief overview of a few aspects of how ecology and technology can link up with agriculture for a more sustainable and maybe even an ecologically regenerative approach to how we farm tree crops. So the word ecology is from the Greek word oikos, meaning the study of our home. So the emphasis there on study and our home, I think, is important. I think often we forget that we're part of that ecology and that system. So simply put, ecology is the biology on its grandest scale. It encompasses every organism on Earth and every process through which organisms interact with one another and their environment. The study of ecology has never been more important than it is today. In 2011, the human population passed 7 billion, and all of you still sitting here are at least in some way, either directly or indirectly, catering for that 7 billion. All living things shape their environment, but humans, us, shape the entire planet. So ecology not only teaches us about the environment we live in, it also gives us a better understanding of how to manage and preserve the habitat we share with other organisms. So for this discussion, we're not going to talk about flat land. However, the same principles still apply for flatland farming, because farming wisely and, most importantly, with integrity means understanding your farm's ecology and correctly reading your landscape. It should, however, be mentioned that what works on flat land rarely applies to complex terrains. However, the opposite is true. What works on complex terrains can also be applied to flat land. So why bother with complex terrains and farming on complex terrains? Agriculturally high potential areas that were previously not considered for tree crop farming can, with the use of technology and basic ecological principles, be sustainably developed. So let's briefly discuss the elephant in the room with whoever's still here, that when farming on complex terrain, the most important thing is soil and water management. So, a brief introduction of soil. Soil is the most complex ecosystem on the planet. It's more complex than oceans, more complex than rainforests. It's the single most complex life form we know of, and we only know 10% of what's going on in the soil. So that's a scary thought. Now, there are 9 billion microorganisms in a healthy teaspoon of soil. So 1 teaspoon of healthy soil, 9 billion microorganisms. So notice that I'm not talking about dirt. So the difference between dirt and soil is that soil is alive, but dirt is dead. There's nothing in it. So the scary statistic, in the last 150 years alone, we've degraded half of our world's topsoil. This leads us to erosion. Broadly defined, soil erosion, for all of you who don't know, is due to the accelerated removal of topsoil from the land surface through water, wind, and/or tillage. So for today's focus, we're going to focus on, or for today's discussion, we're going to focus on water as the primary cause for erosion on complex terrains. The most likely or the most accurate range currently that we have for global soil erosion as a result of water is between 20 and 30 gigatons per year. That's a lot of soil. It's a lot of loss of topsoil. However, you may say that erosion is a natural ecological process, which is true. The problem is currently the rate of loss far exceeds the rate of new soil formation. And the current estimates on the rates of soil erosion of arable land is 100 to 1,000 times higher than the natural background values for erosion. Now, if you compare this to known soil formation rates, which is typically below 1 tons per hectare per year, you can start grasping the severity of this situation. So for the most part, the way in which we currently farm or try to farm on complex terrains, all we're doing is turning soil into dirt. And if you continue this way, there's an estimated 60 arable growing seasons left on planet Earth. Now, I didn't make up these stats. These are clever soil people who do all these calculations. So we're faced with a dilemma, but fortunately a dilemma that we can change. Unfortunately, change, and more specifically changing a perception, is extremely difficult. So, after being involved in the design and development of approximately over 350 hectares of orchards on complex terrains, some were slightly flat, we decided to make it a bit more official and think about why we, as Node Ecology, keep on doing this. Why bother? So to mark the official launch of Node Ecology today here at Maluma Day, we thought it best to tell you a bit more about us and how you can collaborate with us on farming differently. So why we do what we do? Everything we do to create a connected environment. We believe in an opportunity for change. We seize this opportunity by considering possibilities and explaining complex ideas in simple, understandable ways. So what is it that we do? We use technology to acquire, monitor, and manage aspects associated with agricultural production systems and link this with ecological principles. Okay, here we showcase simple environmental monitoring, shown here as a temperature and soil moisture monitoring, and use of GIS to assist in data visualization. I'm a bit fast for that slide. Here we go. And we're currently testing linking our data, so to bring it back to Edrean's, what they're busy with, and the farmer's existing data with a centralized database through a farm management app to ease the burden of farm record keeping, because we realize that that's a massive burden, is record keeping. So please also, on that note, visit our stall and engage with Ebi, our high-tech anthropologist, in a survey regarding this specific aspect. He's got a questionnaire, and it'll be great if you can interact with that. So the next, I'm just going to look at some of the practical examples of what we've done and of how we build and use complex terrain models in our aim to understanding how each farm is linked to the underlying ecological processes. Now this, along with environmental monitoring data that I just spoke of, is used in the planning and the designing of orchards within these complex terrains. This is just a high-resolution orthomosaic. Then we generate a high-resolution digital elevation model. Now this is very important for the terrain modeling. For instance, modeling where the drainage flow is within the natural landscape. We also then look at erosion risk zones. So typically there, your red zones are areas that are, that's got a high risk of eroding away if not developed properly. And ultimately we define different slope classes to determine the most sustainable ways for road direction and angle. So basically everything from a yellow, so the green's pretty much okay to use conventional farming methods, but everything else, you should start considering working with the landscape and or with the ridges and or terraces. So let's take a step back and look at how we obtain and process this data necessary for developing an orchard on a complex terrain. Our process involves 5 main phases, and if possible, we repeat this over and over from the initial concept phase and then again as built, which I'll show in the example now, to identify areas that we may have got something wrong. It starts with the aerial survey, basically flying the drone over the property and then using that to generate the orthomosaic and the digital terrain model. The acquired data is processed to produce a high-resolution orthomosaic and, more importantly, the digital elevation model used in the terrain modeling. Now, during the modeling phase, we focus on creating models that replicate complex ecological processes taking place in the landscape, things that we can't really see. The idea is to work with the landscape and look at ways in which we can potentially improve the existing landscape that we started with. So for this case study, we will look at how modeling the surface and subsurface flow that I showed earlier informed the direction and slope, the direction and the slope of the ridge and the terraces designed for this farm. A hillshade provides a great image just to look at texture and see where certain maybe rocks and outcrops, etc., are located more visually. We generate sub-meter contours with the data that we have, so it's highly accurate. As a more or less, the digital surface or terrain model that we generate is around 30 centimeter, anything from 15 to 30 centimeter accuracy. So it's often the resolution is too high to actually use and for modeling, so we downscale it to about 0.5 meter. This is typically for this block, this is what the normal flow would look like. You can see it's very diffuse. You've got a central channel there where everything sort of flows into, and then on the northern side you can see there's also sort of a main channel there where water drains into. Now let's look at how we decided on the design for this to develop with the landscape. Just also to mention, this is a fairly steep block. Okay, so after we've decided our general road direction and slope, ridges and terraces are designed with a maximum downward slope of 5 degrees along the terrace or the ridge, and a 3 degrees backward slope away from the face of the terrace. And to further minimize erosion risk, on the 5 degree slope, we plant cover crops. For instance, what's the one Arachis, which also then reduces the need for spraying herbicides in the orchard. Okay, now this is as built. So this has now all been processed after we've built this. That's the digital elevation model. Now this you can see, this is the elevation model with the hillshade, just to give that texture and see where is what. The northern side, basically everything that's divided by that central road, which serves as a drainage line as well. Everything to the north are terraces, and everything here on the bottom southeast are rows. Okay, now this is the new channels. These are the new channels. You can see how we've changed the flow of the water within that specific landscape. The area highlighted in green here at the bottom, that is an area that we picked up where you'll have potential pooling of water, and that's exactly what happened there. So it's something that we can go out into the field and we can rectify for those specific rows. And then the other arrows just points towards how we've manipulated the water to rather drain with the landscape. So it's along those contours and those terraces towards the far side, the northern side, and drain into the other main channel, reducing the flow of water into, or the drainage into the central channel and that road. And you can also see how there's a lot fewer channels that are developed, or at least this is surface drainage. These aren't necessarily channels. This is how water flows through the landscape. And what's important here is we've actually forced the water back into the soil by using this method. Not creating wet conditions, just increasing the depth of water infiltration into the landscape. So you retaining your water as opposed to just having your water all run off to the neighbor. Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Llewellyn, I just want to know if you go back on that previous slide. I think one thing, that we tend to do wrong is we tend to take everything to one, drainage ditch, and wrong. But, for me, it's almost volume of water and the speed at which the water flows. How do you balance that? Because theoretically, the way I assume, or the way I think about it, you want to limit, the flow of the water, the speed at which it goes. And if you can break that at intervals, or, break it down, obviously, in my view, it helps. But I think, from a farmer's point of view, it would be nice to understand your point of view.
So that's why we, in this specific, on complex terrains, what we do is we try to work with the contours, the natural contours. You can see the natural contours actually follow those terraces around that ridge. So now that you've got this terrace built in with a backward slope and a slight angle, so you're not developing the terrace on exactly the contour. You're tilting it about between 3 to 5 degrees with a 3 to 5 degree downward slope, just slightly along that that contour. And the terrace. So just also contours and terraces. Contour is the natural. A contour is a line indicating similar elevation. So point A here and point B there, they'll both be on a similar elevation. You'll connect a line following the same elevation. A terrace, on the other hand, is like a bench, like what you build. So what we aim to do is to build the terraces along the contour. So being informed by the natural contours and then just tilting that slightly so that you have a slope at which the water can slowly drain, as opposed to the natural drainage on this specific landscape, which was just diagonally down and into that central channel in a sense. So now we've stopped that, we've decreased the speed at which that water flows, and in the process forced a lot of that water into the soil, just in the way in which we develop the terrace and also the way in which we rip the ridges. And then whatever's left that can still drain out, then drains out into different sections. So we've in this case, we've taken away a lot of the drainage that came from the northern side into the central channel and forced it to the north, and then everything here from the southeast that was draining into that center channel, whatever's left can still drain into that center channel. But because your terrace and your ridge is built in such a way to manipulate the water and not let it run off too fast. I don't know if that really... this is just for comparison's sake. Just give it a go again. This is the comparison that you can see. That was the old model, this is the new model. We've also, to take note, the thicker the line is on these maps, the more water actually accumulates at that specific point. So you can see how thick the lines are on the original landscape or the terrain, and now how the lines are very subtle, very much thinner, meaning that we've slowed the water down, and water is not necessarily accumulating at a single or central point. Now this is as built, just a view from the southeast, and then I'm just going to give Lawrence the mic here to talk about the practical aspects of how we actually stake this out and what we use.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lawrence, and my role is to take what Llewellyn gives us and translate it into the orchard, into the practical. So the maps that you just saw, it's geotagged, so there's GPS points on the entire map. So we start off with a base station in the field. We get a fixed point, and now we have to do what the map says. So we get a fixed point, and then you will see where we have a soldier, Emil, standing with a RTK GPS rover, and that is 2 centimeter accurate, speaking to the base. So we generate points, and then you will see there's just a couple of things here that you can notice. We've moved away from the cable. Okay, so you can see that we've totally moved away from the cable method of measuring out the ridges. And there's only 2 staking out. So usually with the cables, there's about 6, and then you jump a ridge. So what we've done here is we've started at the bottom, and he's done every ridge. And as he's boarding, we immediately put the stake where the tree will be then planted. So it's a lot faster as well, although it's only 2, and you can see how accurate that is. So 2 centimeters is about the thickness of the stake. This is just another way of how we board, so he goes into reverse. Just here that I would like to show you is that when we start farming with ecology, we give up a nice looking straight orchard. So you can see if we had to start at the bottom and remain with that direction, it would have been easy. But here we changed row direction. And that was because we wanted to remain with 10 degrees angle for practicality reasons with when we start with the tractors and everything. So we give up the normal and we start looking at practical, and still it doesn't look too bad. And then you'll see way up at the top here where it was getting too steep, we stopped with the ridges and we immediately went into terraces at the top again. So, and then all of that is also terraces again. Right, what we've found in the last couple of years is when we build terraces, we rather use the excavator than the bulldozer. The excavator does it fast. I think you guys will elaborate on it, but also way more accurate than the bulldozer going straight down and building terraces. So what we found is with the bulldozer that they cannot slope it the 3 degrees like what we wanted. So usually water runs over your expensive terrace. So that's why we use the excavator. Why are you laughing? Okay. Yeah, good. Right, so yeah, our why. This is, yeah, we weren't allowed to take a lot of photos, but this is one of ALLESBESTE'S farms, and this is their neighbor's topsoil. So I wasn't sure what to say apart from, I think, doing your trellis trials.
If anyone wants about 20 hectares, I can sell you some.
So this could work for your trellis trial, 3 meter by 1.5 down here in the valley. But yeah, I'm a farmer, and the first thing that you're probably asking is, what is the cost? And we can justify it by this, because no amount of money will ever replace your topsoil again, and you actually just building a desert then. So yeah, that's from me.
Okay, so I'm just gonna wrap this up. Some of the, or at least I think you can elaborate on this. I'm more the the ecologist and the GIS guy in the background, and not always don't always understand the practical reasons behind doing this. But some of the things and potential advantages that I at least understand is we can better manage the flow of water and retention of water in the orchard. I think we tend to also be scared of water in the orchard, but in this case, what we're doing is we're forcing the water into your ground supply. This eventually trickles down into your dams, your reservoirs, your boreholes, and it doesn't transport soil and topsoil with it. Orchard management practices, some of the potential advantages is reduction in the operating of heavy machinery on steep slopes. Also, something that makes sense to me is irrigation. Your irrigation drip lines can run on a maximum of a 5-degree slope along each of those terraces, which I think is good in terms of pressure. But in order to farm on complex terrain like this, we need to consider alternatives in orchard design and sacrifice the conventional methods. This means letting go often of straight lines and all the aesthetic values and beliefs, and maybe consider appreciating a new form of aesthetic design, which is not just ecologically functional and practical, but a new aesthetic. So please come and visit our stall. We're outside. Anyone who participates in the interactive survey with our high-tech anthropologist, Ebi, will stand a chance to win 10-hectare free orchard design. And then anyone who's present here today who contacts us with the code word agroecology, I didn't put that up, but that's exactly how you spell it, agroecology, will receive a 10% discount on your first project. So, yeah, that's what I have to say. Consider the possibility. Thanks.
Has anyone got any questions for either one of these gents? So we're just quickly going to, on the same topic, we just like to show you something from our experience as well. Just need to change this thing. Missed it. Okay, there we go. I think Zander just wants to say something here.
So this is a real quick one. You'll see what Edrean does on our side is he gives me a little summary like that. So it shows you the total amount of trees and the meters in the orchard, so average row length and things like that. So the importance of this for me is from a budgeting point of view. So theoretically you can work quite far ahead and start calculating in terms of your budgeting. If you need to apply for finance and those type of things, it gives you a good project plan for the next 12 months or 24 months if you want to. And I think, it's basically ties into what André will present on, because what we do is we put our budget in place, and now you need to measure what your actual performance is. It's not always nice to see that at the end of the 12-month period or run out of money halfway through it. So I just wanted to show this purely as an introduction on what André will present in terms of the way we monitor our machines in the orchards.
Okay, so I think the future of farming is in doing it right, and I think these guys really take it to the next level, and I think that's an example of definitely doing orchard development right, and the future way of doing it. You really know what you're doing, and you're working with a plan when you follow these models. So if there aren't any other comments or questions, I'd just like to introduce the following speaker. Now, I spoke earlier about having the information and the data as the first part of a farm management system, and then we need the reporting. And I think most of you will know when it comes to reporting, it tends to be a rather big headache, making sense of the information at hand. And it really becomes a skill doing it properly. And we've got André here, and I think Yolanda, is she also going to speak? Yolanda, you're welcome. She's just going to say something quickly. But they're from a company called RIC Consulting. Now, they are a partner of a company called Qlik, which is an international company, and they do business intelligence software. And they really take it to the next level, making sense of what's going on in your information and with your data, and really helping you to understand what you're looking at to make those important decisions. So with that, I'd just like to hand over to them.
Wow, really graveyard shift. So thank you for the introduction. I think you said basically what I wanted to say. But other than that, I would just like to introduce you to our company, RIC Consulting. We've been in business for 20 years, specifically focusing in business intelligence and working closely with Qlik, our software vendor. We're based in Johannesburg, but we've got over 130 customers across South Africa and some areas within Africa. I'm not going to bore you any further with software jargon. I think what we really want to say is that we're recognized in our field, not just by our customers, but by our vendor. And André, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, just high level, our business model is really to work with our partners, all our strategic partners and Qlik. And we basically take strategies, business intelligence strategies and technologies. We apply them to past, current, and future applications, and that will impact your business in such a way that you will see the value by saving money and increasing your savings. And that's basically our business model, and saying that we're the definitive choice. There's a lot more in analytics. And I think it would be great if you can join us for happy hour after the session. And then you can chat to the rest of the team, and we can take you through any questions that you've got on analytics. André will take you through some actual Qlik applications to show you what we've done with the ALLESBESTE'S team.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The few remaining. So from my side, I'm André Kilian. I'm consulting with RIC Consulting on Qlik technologies, not only Qlik Sense, there's actually a range of products. So getting straight into the analytical side, Qlik Sense is an application that basically draws data from various data sources, whether that might be Fulcrum, Excel, Sage Pastel, Access SQL, and basically we harvest intelligent information in the application, massage some of that data, and then we present that data in a human way on basically that you can access on a laptop, tablet, or a mobile device. Well, we've developed a few applications for ALLESBESTE'S, but for today we will show the ground. Let me just quickly log in here.
While he's finding it, I just want to mention, I think I gave him the worst possible data that there was. My manager that had to do the data capturing, he tends to miss data or only enter it 2 days later. So André did a real good job of filtering through that. I didn't expect that. And it's really simple data, and it gave us really big results.
So getting into this, this is a dashboard currently showing multiple years, months. So for this example, I'm just going to choose January 2020. So with regards to ridge building, they did 1,350 meters. Total diesel used 6,300. Machine hours 1,060. Total activities they done in the orchard is 87, and we're looking at a total of 23 days worth of analysis. So we can just quickly open this up and just change that to a date, and we can actually have a look at the amount of hours used with the diesel comparison based on that on a daily basis. Going down to the bottom, we've got diesel usage per activity. So here we've got some deforestation, 1,990 liters of diesel used. With regards to mainline irrigation, 1,500 liters of diesel used. And with regards to ridge building, 1,400. And that gets across, looking at the hours per activity, once again, mainline irrigation, 333 hours. Ridge building, 323 hours, and deforestation, 157.6. The total amount of days per activity, ridge building, they did for 22 days within the current selected data that we've got, deforestation 20 days, and mainline irrigation 19 days.
Sorry, just to give you some background, I think André is stressing a bit and rushing through it, but it's basically, we built a Fulcrum app just to track all yellow machines and the hours they spend in the orchards. And I think all of you know that's one of the most difficult things is to monitor the diesel on those machines and the hours, because you get invoiced if that machine runs 2-3 months on end, or in some cases more than a year. That's a lot of paperwork to run through. So it's a simple app that we did. So it's literally date, machine, start time, end time on a meter, and diesel usage for the day. And then if the activity was ridge building, you had to put in how many meters did it build a day. So that's just a simple form that we created, and that gave us this data at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's basically, I'd say most probably about 4 measures that you've got on that. Going into the next one, so these are all sheets within the application, and basically going from a dashboard down to the raw transactional data. So this would be the diesel overview. Diesel overview per month. If we deselect that month quickly over there, then you'll actually see some trend analysis based on the diesel usage per month. For this example, we're just going to look at Jan again. So here we've got some diesel per machine. So as you can see, the radius of the pie actually changes here, and that's based on the machine hours. So we're actually getting 2 measures off of one image that shows excavator obviously most hours. As you can see, it's a bit further out than the TLB Oceana, because this is per machine. And these go down obviously using less amount of diesel, but also less amount of machine hours. If we quickly open up this one, this is liter per machine hour per machine, and basically showing a KPI based on that. Bobcat 1, as you can see, 3.6 liters per machine hour. Diesel usage per activity. Quickly open that up. As we can see, per activity, the amount of diesel that was used, and then a robot indicator there that just shows.
I just want to mention the top bar there, for example, and that's what's important to me is you need to either say why did it happen, and should be able to motivate that, or you should know it's a point of theft perhaps or whatever. And so the deforestation is done obviously with a big excavator, and that's why it's consuming that much diesel. I think you will show it as well what the excavator's usage per day is, and it's ridiculous if you compare that. So the Bobcat, for example, he spoke of is a 5.5 tonne Bobcat that we do the ridges with. So when you bring that down, that diesel usage per hour, that factor, if you can bring that down, obviously you work the same hours with a small excavator and a big excavator. So it's a factor that you need to take into account long run in terms of cost savings.
You can also see, if you look at the deforestation over here, you can see that everything has been done with the excavator, where if we select something different, like maybe, I don't know, ridge building. So if we look at ridge building, there's a few machines working on ridge building. Which are your biggest machines, which are your smallest machines in terms of diesel usage, and the radius is based on machine hours used. We can also see diesel usage per block number in the orchard itself, and then diesel usage per farm. And if we do select a farm like Husqvarna, we can, basically the whole dashboard changes to all the information with only regards to the farm Husqvarna, the machines that worked on that farm. The next one, we've got machine hour overview. This shows the total machine hours versus the amount of activities done. So if we quickly just deselect the month we've got there, we can see the trend. And yeah, you would expect more hours as more activities would happen. So it's easy to spot an anomaly within this information. Looking at Jan again, it's just easier to look at 1 month, right? Because you can focus on more things. Machine hours per farm, very much the similar image as we can see with the diesel usage. Machine hour per machine. So yeah, we can see the TLBs generally work the same amount of hours except for the Johannes Cebola one. He's a bit lower. Machine hour per activity, exactly the same as the diesel usage, just based on machine hour, and then machine hour per block number within the orchard. And these are all filterable by week, by date, by actual farm, year. Anything within the data, we can actually build a filter on that, and the filter will carry across to different pages. Don't hope you've got load shedding again in time.
Okay, I think while it's loading, I think Llewellyn touched on the question about, for example, the fleet management, the linkage of the data. And I think one advantage something like Qlik has over Excel, well, two advantages. The one is that you could see it's interactive data or interactive analytics. And so that's the one end of it, but the other end is that you have the ability, as Edrean said earlier, to link different data sources. So although the fleet management theoretically doesn't have a petrol usage or let's say two-stroke oil usage, by just having each time that they book out at the diesel store, say, okay, it's so much liter in this jerry can for that machine, you already, if you just correlate that data from one system to another system, Qlik's almost the system that brings all of that reporting together. So although the fleet management has a dashboard, what Edrean and I have been saying is we don't want to log into 10 different websites every day. It's, you know, unless you have 10 different screens in your office, it becomes a quite heavy task. So it's actually nice to have one website that you're in. And so if you have your morning meetings with your managers or whoever, that's the dashboard that you run through. Or tonight when you get at home and you quickly want to check the day's tasks, that's where you go and all the different sites are linked.
One thing I just want to say also is that the nice thing about this is, like you've seen now, it's set up in different sheets. And you can set certain sheets up as a dashboard overview where because sometimes you're not necessarily interested in all the finer detail. There's certain indicators that you want to monitor or see. So then you can put only those indicators on there. And if you want to drill deeper, this allows you to do that. You can just simply click on something and then you drill into the data. You play with the data and with specific filters to see different things and to make sense of what's going on. And I don't know, André, if you will be getting to your advanced analytics as well, the machine learning aspects.
Okay, so it's got, obviously it's got machine learning and AI capabilities when you do the self-service BI. I don't know, it gets quite technical, so I don't know how deep you want me to go into that.
Just the basics in terms of what it's used for.
So obviously we build the application with a certain need, right? So the biggest thing in building applications, I don't believe in building an application just to build an application. I want to build an application to fulfill a certain need. So if I can take that to a real life example, I don't want to go and buy a Lamborghini to just go to the shop to buy bread and milk. I'd rather maybe build a scooter to fulfill that need. So fulfilling a need is one of the biggest things. I mean, we can get into SSEs, which is server-side extensions, which is massive. I mean, that the analytics stuff that those guys are doing is literally crazy. With regards to the AI, we've got insights over here. So just clicking on that, this will start generating insights with the AI engine. This generally works a lot from the self-service side, not from the way we actually built the application. We built it from the back end up. So as you can see, it says no insights found. Because the application was built from a developer side. If you built this application from an end user side, where you just drag and drop, something that's André mentioned that he does quite often, then all the insights will be generated automatically with AI. And the more you use the application, it will start to learn what are you generally looking at, what do you find interesting, and adding those things to different sheets. And it will start to preempt better information and better analytics based on that. With regards to the newest version, there's a version that got released in Feb 2020. I don't know if you guys are upgraded yet, but they've actually got some of the robot capabilities that we built in, which is a standard now. They've got linear trend lines, which is a standard, so all of that stuff doesn't need to be developed from a developer side. It can actually be used from a self-service point of view, which is a click, drag and drop. This dashboard is a ridge building dashboard, so everything on this page is just with regards to one activity, which is ridge building. Average diesel per meter, total diesel usage, average diesel per meter per day. And then this is some statistics we've got over here that actually talks about efficiency. So if we look at this, Bobcat 2, for January, is the most efficient based on ridge building, based on the amount of machine hours at work, the total amount of meters that it actually covered, along with the amount of diesel it used. Yes. Once again, another pie chart with a dual indicator showing average diesel usage based on the radius and the average meters per day that each machine actually covered. And some trend analysis at the bottom. Then we get into some statistical information. So this is some activity statistics, machine statistics, and then obviously the statistic details. So we quickly open up this. So this shows per activity the amount of machines, amount of hours, amount of diesel used, liter per machine hour indicators, the total amount of days, total amount of machines that was used, average diesel usage per day, and the average machine hour usage per day. So if we look at this and we look at those ones, so there's 3 machines on that activity. Here at the bottom, we should see those 3 machines, and it will roll up. Let me just select that properly. There we go. And it will roll up. So as you can see, 5.4, 5.4, but it will give an individual reading on each machine. And then these are actually the details per day. And we only use those 2 measures, date, activity, to actually build most of the statistics on this page. Clearing all the selections. That is the Wi-Fi that is a bit slow. Yeah, this is actually a live application, so the mobility on the application has been set up completely. You can access it on mobile, tablet, laptop, anywhere in the world. Going to the next one, so here we start looking at some outliers within the data. We're looking only at Jan 2020, and we can see there's 2 little red dots over there. So for the 3rd of Jan this year, I'm just going to select that day. And it says there's an outlier on that day based on machine hours that was used, total diesel. And this shows the diesel and machine hours. So that's your machine hours. If I just quickly go back, because that is an interesting image, your machine hours on the left with your amount of diesel on the right, and the size of the the bubble also indicates the total amount of activities done per day. Total amount of machines that was active on the day. So if I quickly look at the 3rd of Jan, on the right-hand side, we can see there's an excavator that was used and a bobcat. And if we just hover over that excavator, due to the fact that I know the data, that excavator used 328 liters of diesel for that day. We flag everything over 300 as a potential risk. Exactly the same with the hours. I don't think we've actually got one for hours, Sander. Maybe on the other more detailed side, but not maybe a graphical representation. Because obviously you can't work for more than, I think we said 12 hours or something per day, per machine. Yeah, that is the Wi-Fi. That does not want to deselect. We'll just wait for that. Yeah, that is not deselecting. Maybe we can try going through to this one. No, that is the Wi-Fi. Yeah, there we go. Ek wil net hierdie een dalk wys. This is one that Sander really wanted. This shows some machine averages. So for this example, we're looking at Jan, and I'm going to just quickly choose a machine over here. There we go. Let's choose a TLB. So looking at this TLB, what it will actually do is it will go and look at the average for this TLB based on machine hours used and diesel used. It will show you all the averages. You've got a little slider here on the right-hand side, which we can actually maybe give it a little bit of a more a toelating. It's like an allowance. Give it a bit of an allowance, and it's busy. And then it will actually show you your liters per day, and every bar that you see, well, when it shows, which is red, is actually an outlier within the data, looking at the historical trends based on averages. And I don't think we're going to get there. No. It is dead.
I think next year we start with this session, because I think people don't realize what they're missing here. But yeah, I think from my point of view, I think the benefit in this is monitoring and being aware of these outliers, but also the planning part. I can't stress it enough. I mean, something like the diesel usage per day or per week or per month. That Frisgewacht farm, you can continue now, Frisgewacht farm, for example, doesn't have diesel tanks on it. So we have a guy driving there every day with a jerry car, you know, a tank behind on a trailer. And that thing can only load 600 liters of diesel. So just the diesel he's driving out and back the whole time is inefficient.
Yes, if I quickly get back to this one that I wanted to show. So here we're looking at 1 ml TLB. Total average machine hours on average for the whole data that we've got. And we've got, I think it's 4 years worth of information, 2 years worth of information in here. I think it's 2 or 3 years, she says. Well, we can just have a look here. Yeah, we can just scroll to the right-hand side. Sorry, because that takes long. So this is data from 2018, September, up until now. And every bar that you see is red, that this is daily data, basically shows that it actually used more diesel on that specific day than it actually should. And then we get to the raw transactional detail. So all this information is basically, this is all the information we had, literally these 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 columns of data, and that's what we use to build the complete application. So it doesn't need to be complex information. It doesn't need to be a vast amount of information. It's the way we actually utilize the information and harvest intelligent analysis from that data and make it presentable at the end of the day. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Andre. Are there any questions? There's a question.
You're talking about, are you mentioning geoanalytics? Yes. So there's a whole, there's a separate license for geoanalytics, but with the Qlik Sense base, you do get a base license based on geoanalytics. The nice thing about geoanalytics is you need to have proper data for it. So Zander's data, obviously they do capture the data and it does use the cell phone's information, but most of that data only gets captured in the office. So when we had a look at plotting some of that information, unfortunately it's not going to be viable for the session. But there's definitely geoanalytics information, yes. Yes. No problem.
Okay, so I've got a question. I love analytics and I love geoanalytics more specifically. So my question is, and I hope I don't offend you, is why use Qlik when you do have some other pretty powerful free stuff currently available? For instance, Google's Data Studio that's launched, it's pretty powerful, and so I think what I'm getting at is, does the client supply you with the data and you manage that data that comes with the service, or does the client actually have to go and build his dashboard, etc.? You do everything, and you do the maintenance and the upkeep and all of that.
We don't do database maintenance or any of that. We're basically an analytics company, so we work only with the analytics. They capture the data. It doesn't matter where that data lives as long as we have access to the data. So we don't want to necessarily interfere with their systems. They keep their stuff running. We just need access to that information to draw that information. And that might, from this application, this is only using Fulcrum, but maybe they want payroll information with that. So there's a lot of systems involved, as Edrean explained earlier on. So without building a management system that's sitting in the middle that actually interacts and actually talks back to the systems, we can put a system in there to give you a 360 view of your whole company and actually integrate all that information on our side. One of the biggest reasons I use Qlik, I'm a developer for 11 years already on Qlik. So there's a lot of other BI tools out there like Power BI, Tableau, you get Google 360, you get Spotfire, Yellowfin. Qlik's got patented in-memory technology, so it's extremely fast. It's most probably one of the fastest tools to actually develop. I think if you just go and download Qlik Sense, which is free, it will most probably take you 30 minutes, and you'll be able, if it is 30 minutes, to actually build a dashboard. Okay. So maybe not advanced analytics, but definitely great insights within the information that you can just literally drag and drop, because this is a drag and drop application.
Okay. So is that a self-service site, or is there...
That's the self-service
site, so, but this is not self-service.
This is self-service.
This is self-service.
This is 100% self-service.
Did you set this up?
So basically, I wouldn't be able to set it up on the level that he did it, but theoretically, I've done other things, and I mentioned this to you, André, because my knowledge is limited. But what I would do a lot of times, like my trellis data, for example, I would take that sheet, drop it in there instead of taking it into Excel and doing those dashboards. Then I would do a whole dashboard just on the trellis where I could click and find the different things that I want to find. I'm trying to think of different things, but Edrean, for example, in the past set up our harvesting and our production analytics. Then I would go and on that database, or even I'll use a better example. I used AfriPro's main data. And it took me about half an hour, and I could filter through count ranges through the growers. So click on a grower a year or a week or a day, and it would show me all the graphs that I want. So just by playing with the filter panes, you know, the graphs or the analytics state, you know, then adapted for that filter. So in terms of working with mass data and, you know, properly structured data, I think, you know, I'm probably the worst person to do it, and I can do it. But I think in this scenario, the data was very corrupt. There was a lot of data, missing dates, things like that, and that's where I really needed André to try and clean that up. So I think that's the service that you kind of need in those scenarios.
My initial impression that I got of Qlik is that Qlik's whole approach is trying to enable the end user to do it himself and to be able to build his own visualizations and everything. So their whole focus is with subsequent upgrades to Qlik, which I think come on a quarterly basis or something. You will find that they're continually improving on making it a self-service platform where you can do it yourself. The nice thing where people like RIC Consulting comes in is, you know, people like me and Zander, we quickly found that we're too stuck sometimes in the thinking of how you think when you're working with Excel. You want to put a regular old bar graph and a line graph and something, and you're not always sure what's the best way to visualize something. And that's where experts like André come in, and they find a way to visualize something in a way that it just clicks in your mind. Excuse the pun. But yeah, so I think, so the power of the platform is, it's increasingly become, with the insights that André showed there as well, that you can drop an Excel spreadsheet right on the web page. You drag and drop it onto the web page, and it reads the data, and you click on the Insights tab, and it generates a lot of insights for you automatically. So it already does a lot automatically. But obviously, like with anything, the real power comes in, or there's a lot of other aspects which can bring real power and extras. I hope I put it.
Yes. No, that was 100%.
Yeah, I think. If there aren't any other questions, I don't think so from the panel. I would like to thank you all. Yeah, I don't know what the English word is, but bittereinders, the guys that stick to the end. Yeah, the legends, okay. André's got it. So, thank you all. I would like to urge you all, Husqvarna, Ecology, RIC, they've all got stands out there. Please go and visit them. All of them, I know, are very eager to come and visit you on the farm or wherever you are and have a one-on-one talk with you. No strings attached. So please make use of that. That's why we brought them here to speak to you guys about. So I think I'm going to give over to Zander for the closure. Or we're just going to greet. Thank you guys for coming.